Okay. Well, welcome. We've got 11 people on the line. I've got Dan Getzman here with us. Dan is Jamboree on the Internet coordinator or organizer, as the phrase is. And Dan, how are you this evening?
Oh, doing pretty good. Just want to shout out and say hello to everybody that's joined this evening. Welcome.
And what we'll do, the protocol is, if you will, as questions occur, type those questions into the, I think it's, on mine at any rate, it's labeled a notes field, but just type your questions into there, send to all. We have Lisa Cristiano is here with us as well from the International Department, and she's going to be organizing the questions so that we can be sure to address each one of them. And then I'm going to try a poll here, and it is, if you'll just select yes or no to the question, do you intend to participate in JOTA or JOTI in 2013? So just give us a quick response there, and we'll share the results with you. I should have some nice music to go along with this. Okay. I think we're probably got as many as we're going to get. So sharing the results. A few weren't able to respond, but everybody said that they're going to participate. So that's working good for us. You'll get a lot out of this presentation. What you're seeing, should be seeing on the screen here pretty soon, those are the patch designs for Jamboree on the Internet and Jamboree on the Air. So my turn first. I'm going to talk about what is Jamboree on the Air. We're going to, if I have some ham radio operators in the audience, this is going to be real basic stuff, primarily for a scouting audience. So what is it? It's a worldwide annual event. It happens the third weekend in October. This is actually its 56th year of operation. It's the largest scouting event in the world. For the 2012 operation, the World Organization estimates about 700,000 scouts actually participated across 13,500 amateur radio stations in 142 countries. So it's a pretty big deal. It starts local time, midnight Friday, runs all day Saturday, all day Sunday. And so that's local time, so there's sort of a rolling start for the thing as the sun comes up and goes down. But its purpose is to introduce scouts to the fun technology of amateur radio, but really the key purpose, gaining perspective on other countries, other scouting programs, and by talking to other scouts. Got a couple of pictures here for you from last year's event. We have a registration system online, so the stations can register. They file a report afterwards. Last year in the U.S., just over 200 reports came in from stations in the U.S., and they shared some photographs with us. This one, I believe, was in the Chicago area, and this one looks to me like it's in a basement ham shack. So it can be a home station, or here, this one is from California. Outdoors, set antennas up, and just make it happen. So what are the benefits? And I don't want to entirely read this to you, but scouts engage in conversations with other scouts. across the country, around the world. They get a glimpse of other cultures and regional differences. And the story that comes to mind there that was reported in 2012, there were some scouts in the Chicago area that got on the air, were able to communicate with Alberta, Canada, and they were amazed. This is, of course, third weekend in October, but they were surprised that it was snowing there in Alberta. But they got to talk with some Canadian scouts, got to find out what was going on in Canada, and then they made a contact with Germany, and their call sign was W9, maybe W9BSA or something like that. And so they were saying 9, and the German couldn't understand. He thought they were saying no in German. So they were learning stuff about the culture. It was really fascinating for them and a fun story to read on this end. It also helps them get started on the citizenship and the World Merit Badge. That particular requirement, 9B, is take part in an international event, and Jamboree on the Air qualifies for that event. They get exposed to technology, the fun, the magic of amateur radio. There's an awful lot of technology at play, and they get to see that, and they can, some operations put on a Radio Merit Badge workshop at the same time. So, what is amateur radio? You've probably heard it called ham radio. It's a hobby, but it's also a service to a local community around. You'll see them out for emergencies, for storm spotting, helping with parades or runs or all kinds of stuff, helping with the communication there. But it's a lot of long-distance communication. We talked a little bit about that with Jamboree on the Air. This particular year, 2013, the conditions, the solar conditions, should be very, very good for long-distance communication. It's the peak of a solar sunspot cycle. But there's also satellite communication. Amateur radio operators actually put satellites in orbit, and you can communicate with those. And I'll mention, I don't think I've got it anywhere else in this report, the International Space Station. Sometimes it gets on the air. They actually have the capability of getting on the air and communicating with any amateur radio operator. 2 years ago, there was a very active astronaut that made quite a few contacts around the world during Jamboree on the Air. But you can also apply and get a scheduled contact with the International Space Station. It doesn't have to be around Jamboree on the Air. It could be any time all year long. Last year, the National Scouting Museum had a contact with the International Space Station. It was a fascinating thing. We got a couple hundred scouts out. 10 of them got to talk with the International Space Station. So lots and lots of fun things in amateur radio. So you probably heard the term, I'm kind of waiting for that slide to pop up. Probably heard the term radio scouting, but it covers all aspects of scouting, or all aspects of amateur radio within the scouting community, or the scouting movement. There's Radio Merit Badge. Radio Merit Badge started in 1918. Actually, at that point, it was called the Wireless Merit Badge. Just a few years later, it became the Radio Merit Badge. The patch that you see there was identical. It's never changed since 1918. But now we have the Amateur Radio Operator Rating Strip. That strip goes on the right sleeve of the uniform. It was introduced in February. It is any licensed amateur radio operator is eligible to wear that strip on their uniform. It harkens back to the 1940s when the Senior Scout program had the Radio Man rating strip. This strip mentioned it was introduced in February. We're now in May, so we're just a few months removed from that, already they've sold 4,000 of the operator strips. So it's there must be a lot of ham radio operators in the movement. That's both adult and youth. We also have the Morse code interpreter strip, and you can see that there with the dots and dashes. Dots and dashes spell out Morse. And qualifications there are 5 words per minute, sending and receiving. That was introduced about a year ago. It's already the second most popular interpreter strip after Espanol, and not too far behind Espanol. The Spanish interpreter strip is selling about 2,300 a year. Amateur or the Morse code strip is at 1,800 a year. So, of course, there was a lot of buzz around that one, so maybe a little surge as it was introduced. Another key aspect of radio scouting is Jamboree on the Air. And then also K2BSA is the ham radio club that's associated with the national office. It's been at the National Jamboree since 1977, and it'll be there again this year for 2013. So lots of stuff going on in radio scouting. And get this slide up. So how do you organize a Jamboree on the Air event? The big key for me that I've observed, I've been in the organizer role for I think this is my 3rd year. The ham radio station needs to go where the scouts are, and the perfect place for that is a camporee, district camporee, council camporee. Units can do it as well, but it's a fabulous additional activity around that camporee that scouts can show up and have a lot of fun with it. In the opposite that we've experienced is where a ham radio club will get on the air, will set it up, do some promotion, set it up at their local club location, or maybe at a park or something like that, and do some promotion and try to get the scouts to come to them. It's almost always a very disappointing experience. Everybody's got a lot going on the weekend, and if they're at a camporee or a Cub Scout event and the station's there, they're going to participate. But if they have to seek it out, it doesn't happen very often. And then another key part of organizing it is of course, publicizing it and providing support to the amateur radio operators that you recruit. So the next slide I've got here is Jamboree on the Internet, and this is Dan's turn to tell us all about JOTI.
All right, this is Dan. You can hear me, Jim? I'm off mute?
Yep, you're sounding good.
All right, good deal. So what is this Jamboree on the Internet? Jim's done a really good job of explaining Jamboree on the Air, and Jamboree on the Internet is, the companion program, and very much the same. It does the same type of things. I like to call it the new kid on the block compared to JOTA. JOTI is about 17 years old, and you heard Jim reference back, JOTA has been alive for 56 years. So it's held the same date as JOTA. It's a companion event, same weekend, same starting time. And rather than radio technology, it uses computer and internet technology to allow the scouts to communicate with other scouts around the world, just like JOTA, and find out the world is a little bigger than just the BSA. And so how do you organize one? It's pretty much the same as a JOTA event. In fact, quite often they're both held at the same event. The same advice of going where the scouts are already applies here. Very excellent. You may need to locate some staff members that are comfortable and knowledgeable with the high technology part. And of course, our scouts are very used to computers and the internet, and they're a great resource. Maybe some older scouts or a venture crew might want to help you out there. You will need internet access to connect, obviously. So that usually means in some type of a building. But with Wi-Fi hotspots, it's possible to hold this at a scout camp or a camporee, providing that there's a cellular data coverage. And the same advice as JOTA, you want to get on your council events and publicize the availability of your JOTI station to assure success. We wanted to add this slide in and share it with you here really quick. The JOTI games, they are optional. If you're doing your first event on either one of these programs, you may not want to focus on the games, but maybe your second or third event year, you may want to look at this. This is some things that add some fun and interest to draw the scouts in. You know, once they get involved communicating, what do they do? Or if they've done it before, is it kind of getting boring to them maybe? And the three games that are really being promoted with JOTA and JOTI is the existing one is JAMPAs. You collect these JID codes and trade them much like you trade scout patches. The one thing is you will need to register as a group to get a JID code. If you register as individuals, you don't get the code. And the scouts trade these as they communicate. Gives them kind of an opener to talk to another scout. Hey, you got a JID code. We want to trade codes and see who can collect the most in all the countries. Again, gives them an activity to do. Last year, they introduced this JOTI challenge, which was tasks given to them that they get to complete during the weekend. And it looked like a lot of fun and something that the scouts should really get into. One of the examples of a task was called false perspective, and they'd go out and take a camera and get a picture of something that represented false perspective. The one I seen had a microphone on a stage right up close to the camera with the scouts off in the background leaning forward like they were yelling at the mic or singing. And of course the microphone appeared to be as big as all three of them put together. And they submit those and get points and medals and stuff. So it gives them something to do and a lot of fun that they can go out and do. And the last one is JOTI Roulette. I don't know that that's going to be the permanent name. That's the development name. New this year, an attempt to do video conference, probably more focused on JOTI, where they would connect in with video conference gear and a roulette wheel would spin and connect them to a scout somewhere else in the world, you know, maybe scouts in Uganda or something, and they get to see them and talk to them in real time on a screen. So that's the games and something we want you to be aware of in case you would like to consider them.
Okay, well, thank you, Dan. And one thing that I'd clarify too, I think the registration for those games, the JAMPAs and the codes and all, is through the World Organization. Is that right?
Yes, they've got to go and log in with their ID to the JOTA.org site and actually register their group, which is recommended that they do. I don't know if it's a requirement. And then they get their codes to play. Okay. Well, next we're going to talk about a little bit about the resources that are available. And as this slide notes, scouting.org/JOTA is the go-to place for Jamboree on the Air resources. And there's just, we've been populating it for the last 3 years, putting up everything that we can think of to help. And for example, there's a leader's guideline on there that's focused for the scout leader. How do I work this thing? What's it all about? How do I make it happen? And then there's another set of guidelines for the amateur radio operator, all the more technical aspects of working with Jamboree on the Air, the frequencies, that sort of thing. And then we've also provided some planning documents and advice, as well as calendars of what to do when. For example, here in May, it's a really good time to, as the council is looking at their fall schedule, to make sure that Jamboree on the Air gets on the schedule and that it lines up with some sort of a camporee, a district camporee, or a council camporee. There's also a lot of program ideas, some success stories, so you can look at, well, gosh, how have other people done this? There's an activity book. One of the things that happens at Jamboree on the Air is the scouts get in front of the radio, they start into these conversations, and you've got a few other scouts lining up, waiting their turn in front of the radio.
So there's an activity book of things that they can do while they're standing in line, like learn what their name is in Morse code and send that with a telegraph key. And there's puzzles, there's things like that to keep them active. There's also some participation certificates. So you can download these, print them black and white or color, and you can fill out, okay, this is Scout Ted, and you were able to talk to the station in Barbados, and this is what you talked about. So they can take that away with them. And then there's also the graphics that you can use in your promotion. And then in about July this year, we plan to open up the registration system. This is the U.S. registration system, and we'll get all the information about your particular station, when you're going to be on, where you're going to be at, how many scouts you think will be participating, what frequencies you'll be operating at, and then we publish that on a periodic basis leading into Jamboree on the Air. So you can go and look at it and say, hey, here's another station in the council nearby. Maybe I can do something jointly with them, or maybe we can set up a schedule to make a contact. So we find that to be very helpful. In fact, we found it so helpful that one person complained that they were getting too much traffic from people requesting schedules with them. So we think that might have been a success indicator, at least that it was visible. And this next slide, I'm waiting for it to show up on one of my computers here. Is it showing up on yours? Okay. Is what that website looks like, and scouting.org/JOTA, and everything you could possibly want to know right there. And now, Jamboree on the Internet. That should be up soon. And Dan?
All right, so and here's the scouting.org/JOTI page, a very similar look and feel to the JOTA page. It's a little newer, and it has pretty much the same things that Jim was talking about for the JOTA program. It's got the leader guidelines. If you're maybe running your first event, you need to know what you need to get together to run it. There's a lot of people maybe have a little fear of the computer technology side, so we've got some quick start guides that will lead you through all that, what it takes to get your computer or your iPad working on JOTI, and patch ordering and the event reports and the other things that you'll be needing to participate in the event. The one thing that we're going to add to this is some description of the games, especially as soon as the roulette game gets a little more defined. So come back and visit, both this web page and the JOTA web page between now and the event to keep up on the latest updates and information we have to share. So that's it.
And Dan, you've got a JOTI Facebook page, don't you?
Yeah, we do that to try to promote and capture some of the activity, and I think it links actually on the bottom of this page when you go to it. The page got clipped off. So you can find our Facebook group and like it. It's probably a little more real-time news coming out, especially coming up on the event, and sharing some of the things that happen during the weekend for people that are participating. So you bet.
And I'll also mention K2BSA, probably more intended for the amateur radio operator, but they have a Facebook page, a Twitter feed, and a website as well. That's really good to connect to. That's where, as Dan mentioned, that's where the quick hitting news is going to hit. Where when the patch first came out, amateur radio operator rating strip, it first got announced there, and got to comment on it, etc. And I'll also mention that Brian's blog, which is part of Scouting Magazine, something for you to look for as well. He's done a very good job of promoting Jamboree on the Air, Jamboree on the Internet. Just keeps you connected to what's going on in scouting. Very, very, very lively. And then here the slide we've got up now is there's my contact information, jim.wilson@scouting.org. My day job is here at Scouting as well as my volunteer job. And then Dan's contact information as well, dan.getzman@gmail.com. So don't hesitate to reach out. And it's now question time, and we're open for any questions you might have. None really came in during the presentation. That's because we're really clear. Okay. Well, we must have been awfully clear. I think that's the whole name of our. Yeah. I've always had this rule: never ask a question you don't want to hear the answer to. But I could use the poll. Let me go ahead and try this. And what we have, everybody. Oh, did we get a question?
Mark Terry.
Okay, Mark. Thanks for your question. Recommended number of ham operators needed in the council. Well, it would depend on the event. It's also there's carts and horses involved. It's how many radios that you'll have available, and that will dictate how many operators you need, how long you want to have it. You certainly need at least one operator per radio, but it's probably a couple per radio, so you can somebody that can operate it, deal with the scouts as they're coming up and the questions that they ask, and etc. So providing a little bit of organization around that. Yeah. Okay, and is it Robert? Yeah.
Sorry.
Robert Odowski says, will there be any follow-up conferences like this? We can certainly do that. In fact, this is our first one. We've done a few on the ham radio side, but yeah, if this is helping, we'd be happy to do that. Might be, in fact, there was a lot of somewhat unknowns on how is the particular Jamboree on the internet game going to work, how do you get the codes, that sort of thing. That would be a very good portion of a follow-up session. Roy Prince says, what about scouts participating in field day this year? We have to team with a local club, but what is your take there? Actually, last year we tried to do some promotion along those lines, getting out word to local councils to say, hey, field day's coming up. This is a great way for you to be introduced to amateur radio. Get out and see what it's like. And we certainly recommend getting scouts out and seeing it as well. I think that's a really good idea. And you can connect with the ham radio operators that are running the field day stations. In fact, I think we provided links to the American Radio Relay League. Has a very good site. Gosh, now that I go down this path, I probably need to explain to everybody what field day is that we're yakking about here. It happens, yeah. Larry, when does it happen? Is it June? I think it is June, but as Larry Wolfgang is with the American Radio Relay League, a lot of resources on that page, both for scouting, for Jamboree on the Air, and for field day. And in fact, you can go on and say, here's where I'm at, where's the nearest field day location? And then for those who aren't familiar with field day, what it is, it's a weekend where amateur radio operators, a lot of clubs, some individuals, but it's mostly a sort of a club activity, go out and set up outdoors. They bring generators, batteries, You get special points if you're away from the power grid, and they make a lot of contacts. So it's all about being, it's really an emergency prep type of thing, and it can be a great deal of fun. And Roy says, yeah, I think it's in June. There's he notes a JOTA station, which is Get on the Air, is what that stands for. And I guess I have one because I got a bag with a handy-talkie in it, but it's typically a bag of stuff that you can get on the air pretty much anywhere. And let's see. Yeah, can we get access to conference materials after this webinar? You bet. And let's see, where do I post these things? We'll get you an email on this, and we'll also let people know that it's available through it's k2bsa.scouting on Facebook, K2BSA-scouting on Twitter, _scouting, and the K2BSA.net website has a lot of postings. We'll also get it on the scouting.org/JOTA and JOTI websites.
Larry's just responding.
Oh, okay. Yeah, let me turn on, let's see if I get it. Okay, we have Larry Wolfgang from ARRL here with us. And Larry, I believe I've turned on your audio.
Okay, maybe. Can you hear me? I see an
Yep.
icon turned on. So I was commenting about the ARRL website for resources for JOTA, and also links for materials for the radio merit badge. So that's a good resource, as well as the scouting.org site. And a comment, field day, I put a note, it's always the third full weekend in June. This year that's the 22nd and 23rd, I believe, without my calendar in front of me. It's a Saturday and Sunday. Field day operation starts at 2 o'clock Saturday and goes either till 2 or 5 o'clock on Sunday, depending on when you start your setup for your station beforehand. The GOTA station, Get on the Air, is a station designed for easy operation, beginners, and a lot of clubs do that, and scouts getting on there would be perfect, although I know with the club that I go out with, we put scouts on the air at any of the stations, just get them calling CQ Field Day and making contacts, and we've done that a few times, although they're usually a little timid to actually grab the microphone. I don't know if there are any other questions I can help answer on that.
Thank you very much, Larry. And Roy Prince is saying the local club here is called it Guests on the Air. Very good. I'll also mention, we'll not only post this slideshow, but we've got some videos as well. We've got quite a few videos around Jamboree on the Air, and I just created one that is more for a scouting audience, that it shows some of the activities. It starts out with a satellite communication from the K2BSA operation at the National Scouting Museum. Then it goes into what's called fox hunting, which is hidden transmitters and directional antennas that the scouts are using to find those hidden transmitters. So it's like orienteering with amateur radio. But we've got that on the video, but more importantly, we've got some scouts talking about that experience and what they like about ham radio. So it's very, very helpful. For example, if you're going into a round table or something like that, and you're saying, gosh, shouldn't we do something around Jamboree on the Air, you can show them what it really is. up until this point, most of the videos that we put on were really targeted for a ham radio audience to reach out to the local council and say, hey, we can help you do Jamboree on the air. And what we learned last year in that activity was that a lot of ham radio operators were reaching out and saying, how can we help you? And the local council folks were going, huh? And they didn't know how to react. And so we're trying to work both sides of it now. But good suggestion on running another one of these a little bit later in the year as we're getting closer to Jamboree on the air.
The only thing with Gerard that he had 4 operators during Cub Scout Fun Day to respond to Mark's question.
Oh, okay. Gerard commented as well up there earlier that they had 4 operators during the Cub Scout Fun Day event. And exactly, don't just think about Boy Scouting or even venturing, but Cub Scout is a big thing. There was a huge event in Houston last year called Fun with Sun or something like that. Just tons of scouts there doing all kinds of activities, but they had a very big presence on Jamboree on the air. That was a very nice activity, and both Jamboree on the air, Jamboree on the internet have a wonderful connection to the STEM initiatives, science, technology, engineering, math, and that's a big deal these days. I always get a little grumpy because I think it's been a big deal for scouting since just about 1910. But it is, you know, both of these activities can really help in that regard to get scouts engaged and interested. So Dan, any closing remarks or comments you'd like to make?
No, I just following on with your last thought, I think, Jim, you made a great point to taking these events to where the scouts are, and that really will assure your success. The Fun with Sun here in the Sam Houston Area Council, I actually attended and talked to the guys setting up the ham radio, and Cub Scouts were really interested, and they were already there, and it gave them another activity to do. So I think that's really a solid advice, is to, you know, not try to run a station off in the corner, but try to go where the scouts are, and I think that's really the secret to having successful events on both JOTA and JOTI, for sure.
Well, and I recall, too, talking to our, I think he's the director of the chief's office here, and his experience in a local council was they were always looking for more activities for the camporees that they were putting on. So this is a natural, as long as you get the camporees scheduled when Jamboree on the air is happening. And that's a big part of the key as well. Jamboree on the air, Jamboree on the internet is all the other scouts are on around the world, and they're eager to make those contacts, and it's just a lot of fun. Okay, well, I want to thank everybody for being here this evening, and we'll get this stuff posted. We'll get an email out to you to let you know where it's at, and check out some of those websites as well, scouting.org/JOTI and scouting.org/JOTA. Try the Facebook pages, K2BSA and JOTI, and yeah, make it happen. I think Scouts will really, really appreciate it. And Larry Wolfgang, thank you very much for being with us this evening, and for all you've been doing for Jamboree on the air and scouting. All right, everybody, good night, and as the amateur radio operators would say, 73 and 88, which means 73 means, oh gosh, it's dropping out of my mind, best regards, and 88 means, I've forgotten, hugs or something like that. It's more on the female side. So thank you very much. Good night.